Hey friends, tonight we're traveling somewhere a little earthier. A time before deodorant, before plumbing, before anyone thought soap was anything more than witchcraft. Welcome to medieval Europe, a world where filth wasn't a problem, it was the background music of life. Before we start, take a breath, settle in, dim the lights, maybe pour some water, the safe modern kind, and if you enjoy these deep dives into history's less glamorous corners, gently tap that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, close your eyes. We're going to wake up together, about 700 years ago. You blink. It's still dark, but the air already tells you what kind of morning it is. Heavy, moist, rank. There's no separation between the smell of night and the smell of day. Both belong to the same stew. Your bed is a sack of straw flattened into obedience by years of bodies. Every piece of hay carries the scent of smoke, sweat, and damp wool. You roll over, and the blanket that's supposed to keep you warm exhales a puff of dust and something faintly like sour milk. The first sound isn't birds. It's coughing. A child somewhere in the dark corner clears his throat. Then his mother's soft voice hushes him. The cough returns, wet, human, ordinary. You're used to it. Everyone is. You sit up. Your head brushes the low rafters of the single-room hut. It smells of yesterday's fire, unwashed hair, and livestock that spent the night inside to keep from freezing. You can hear them breathing, shifting. A goat sneezes. A hen stirs in a basket. This is warmth. This is home. You swing your legs down. Bare feet hit earth, not floorboards, not carpet, just packed dirt damp with condensation. It's cool and sticky, a little uneven. A boot print from last night's rain holds a puddle of grey water. It glimmers in the dim firelight like a warning. Outside, someone is already drawing buckets from the communal well. The rope squeals against the wooden pulley. The water splashes, thick and brownish. You know better than to drink it without boiling. You rub your arms, trying to shake off the night chill. Washing, the way we understand it, doesn't happen here. There's a bucket in the corner. Sure, for quick rinses, for wiping mud off hands after work. But the idea of immersing your whole body in water on purpose? That's madness. Everyone knows too much washing makes you weak. Opens the skin, invites sickness through the pores. It's safer to smell a little alive. You step outside. Dawn is creeping over the village. Smoke rises from a dozen thatched roofs curling through mist. The air should feel fresh, but it doesn't. It's layered. Manure from the fields, tannin from the nearby stream where hides soak, fish guts from the market. Even the church bell carries the scent of iron and sweat from the hands that ring it. The village is alive and the village stinks. And nobody finds that strange. Water itself is suspicious. The stream looks inviting until you notice the sheen. Upstream, tanners rinse skins. A few huts toss their waste straight in. It's a living thing, this water. It carries stories, sickness, secrets. The elders say it's fine for washing clothes, but not people. Skin absorbs. Skin remembers. So people wipe down with a damp rag on feast days. Maybe change their linen if they're lucky enough to own 2 sets, and call it renewal. You catch sight of your reflection in a puddle. Hair matted with sleep, face streaked with soot from last night's fire. The skin on your hands is cracked, dirt pressed deep into the creases, nails black at the edges. You're not dirty in the way a mechanic might be dirty today. You're seasoned, cured, like old leather. The smell is part of you, and oddly, no one minds. In a world where everyone stinks, smell stops being a social signal. It's just air with personality. Someone opens their door and dumps a pot into the lane. The splash hits the mud, and a new aroma joins the chorus. The geese waddle through it unconcerned. You realize that what we'd call unsanitary is, to them, practical. Waste fertilizes soil, dirt insulates, smoke preserves. Every foul habit has a logic. Bathing, by contrast, has none. There's work to do, fields to plough, bread to bake, animals to tend. No one has time to boil gallons of water for vanity. A woman nearby kneels beside a wooden basin. She dips a cloth, wipes her face, then her baby's. That's washing. A gesture, not an event. The cloth goes back into the same grey water, swirls twice and hangs on a peg to dry. Later, someone will use that same basin for kneading dough. The cycle continues, circular, efficient in its own strange way. The smell of bread begins to drift through the lanes. Yeast, ash, and something faintly sour. It almost covers the rest, almost. You breathe it in and feel, briefly, clean. Clean isn't the absence of odour here, it's the dominance of a pleasant one. When the baker's smoke rises high enough to blanket the manure, people smile. For an hour or two, the village smells of food instead of itself. You head to the communal well. The bucket creaks, the rope groans, and when it splashes back up, the water looks alive, tiny things dancing just below the surface. No one understands bacteria, but everyone understands consequence. Drink the wrong sip, and you'll spend days bent over in agony. Better to drink ale, weak and yeasty, but at least boiled once in the brewing. Beer is breakfast, lunch, and medicine. Water is the gamble. A young shepherd walks by, cloak stiff with old rain. His face shines only where the weather has rubbed it raw. He grins, teeth yellow but proud. You notice the same sheen on everyone, a waxy film of sweat and oil that seals them like a second skin. It's protection. It keeps out the chill, the insects, maybe even evil itself. Peasants call it the blessing of labor. You'd call it grime. You think about taking a bath. Just imagining it makes your body tense. Where would you even find the water? The river is half a mile away, icy, unpredictable. If you stripped down, people would stare. Nakedness isn't freedom here, it's scandal. And what if someone saw you scrubbing like a pagan? They'd laugh, or worse, they'd pray for you. Clean skin looks suspiciously like arrogance. Instead, you do what everyone does. You splash a handful of cold water on your face, wince at the shock, and stop there. That sting means you've done enough. You rub your hands on your tunic, adding another layer of the village to the fabric. It's not filth, it's proof you belong. The world outside may be cruel, unpredictable, but dirt is loyal, it never leaves. As the sun climbs, heat wakes the deeper smells. Barnyard steam, sweat-soaked wool, fermenting grain. The air thickens until breathing feels like swallowing. You begin to understand how people stop noticing, how survival teaches the nose to surrender. There's comfort in sameness. Everyone carries the same perfume of toil. You don't stand out, and that means you're safe. At midday, a group of children chase one another through the mud, laughing. Their legs splash brown water onto skirts and tunics, and no one scolds them. Dirt washes off in theory, but it also grows back overnight. The mothers know better than to fight it. They save their energy for real battles, harvests, hunger, cold. Cleanliness isn't a virtue here. Endurance is. You glance toward the church. A priest stands outside, robes heavy with incense smoke. To him, purity lives in the soul, not the skin. He blesses the crowd with water flicked from a silver branch, 3 drops on 100 faces, and calls it cleansing. The people bow, grateful. In a world where holy water comes by the spoonful, a full bath would feel almost blasphemous. Evening drifts in slow and smoky. You've worked the fields, hauled wood, mended tools. Your skin hums with effort, your hair stiff with salt. The fire in the hearth snaps, releasing another wave of scent, burnt meat, damp straw, human closeness. You sit by it and feel something surprising, comfort. The smell that first made you gag now wraps you like a blanket. It means warmth, community, life continuing despite everything. You remember that bath you imagined earlier. You don't miss it anymore. The idea of submerging in water feels distant, unnecessary. Out there, somewhere, nobles might soak in tubs of herbs, but you know the truth. You'll wake up tomorrow just as you are, layered in the same faithful grime. You'll step into another day without washing, and the world will go on turning, perfectly indifferent. So you lie down again on the straw. The smells settle around you, familiar and steady. Outside, the night wind carries them across the fields, blending village with earth, earth with sky. This is the scent of survival, the perfume of the Middle Ages. And as you drift toward sleep, you realize something quietly beautiful. Even filth, endured long enough, becomes history. Morning stretches thin and grey. Dew slides from the thatch and runs in crooked rivulets down the wall. You step outside and listen to the village breathe. Buckets clank, dogs bark. Somewhere a rooster insists the sun has arrived even though the light hasn't decided yet. The air smells cleaner than the night, but not by much. It carries a damp edge, the promise of water. For us that might mean refreshment. For them it means risk. You walk toward the stream with the other women and boys who carry clay jars on their shoulders. They talk softly, glancing at the water as though it might overhear them. The surface looks calm, mirrored in pewter light, but everyone knows calm water lies. The elders say evil hides in still pools. Doctors, if you could call them that, warn that sudden baths weaken the heart. Bathing, they whisper, invites death through open pores. Water doesn't cleanse, it corrupts. The belief runs deeper than fear. Medieval medicine says your body holds 4 humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, and they must stay balanced. Hot baths, physicians argue, stir them up. Cold baths trap them. A healthy body keeps its humours simmering quietly like stew. Disturb that balance, and fever slips in. So instead of washing, you protect the seal of your skin. Dirt is armour, sweat is a safeguard, water is intrusion. You crouch beside the stream and watch a neighbour rinse laundry with practiced economy. Dip, twist, wring. The grey foam floats downstream, where another villager fills a pitcher for the kitchen. No one thinks to separate clean from foul. The river carries both like a single truth. Downstream again, the tannery stinks of lime and hides. Beyond that, the pigs drink. It's a circle so complete that to question it would sound like arrogance. Water serves everyone, therefore it belongs to no one. When illness comes, and it always comes, people blame the air. Invisible vapours, miasmas, drift through towns like curses. The cure is not to wash the body but to fortify it with fragrance. Carry a sprig of rosemary in your sleeve, wear a pouch of lavender at your chest, burn juniper twigs when the smell thickens. You perfume the air that touches you, not the skin itself. Even the sick bathe their rooms, not their flesh. You remember the story of Agnes, the miller's daughter. She went bathing in springtime, when the river still bit with snowmelt. The next morning she coughed, then burned with fever, then died before the week was out. The priest said she angered the saints with vanity. The physician said she let the chill into her bones. No one said infection. The conclusion was simple. Water killed her. Her friends took it as lesson, not tragedy. Still, there are exceptions. On feast days, when the air grows heavy with heat and the flies turn bold, someone might fetch enough water for a quick rinse. Children splash hands and faces. A few brave souls dip ankles. But never submersion. Never the pagan act of soaking. The church frowns on nakedness, even alone. Better to sweat honestly than to risk the devil's reflection staring back from a pool. Inside the village, the best water isn't for people. It's for brewing. Boiled, fermented, transformed into small beer, it becomes safe. The same chemistry that makes ale makes survival. Everyone drinks it, peasants, monks, even children. The buzz is gentle, the protection real, so the smell of malt replaces the smell of cleanliness. The tavern is the pharmacy, the brewer, the healer. You pause at the well and notice how people handle the rope. They don't let it drag on the ground. They whisper a prayer before lowering the bucket. Wells are mouths that connect to underworld rivers. Drop the rope too fast, the old women say, and something down there might grab it. The ritual isn't superstition, it's insurance. Respect the water, and maybe it will spare you. By midday, the stream glitters deceptively pure. A group of children splash their feet while a dog drinks. In the distance, a tanner dumps another vat of rinse water. You can taste the metallic tang in the breeze. The villagers hardly notice. Their senses have adapted to poison. They are survivors not because they're careless, but because they've learned to interpret danger differently. If everyone dies from bathing, you avoid baths. Simple math. In the larger towns, public bathhouses once flourished. They came from Rome, carried by the memory of empire, great steam rooms with stone basins, laughter echoing through marble halls. But centuries changed meanings. When plague followed trade routes, people noticed something. Cities with bathhouses suffered faster. The logic was inevitable. If the washed die first, the dirt must defend. Municipal councils closed the baths, the church sealed the doors, and cleanliness became suspicion. You imagine the rumours spreading like fog. Demons hiding in steam, sin nesting in water droplets, temptation dripping from shared tubs. Once, couples bathed together under candlelight. Now that memory itself smells sinful. Bathhouses become brothels, then ruins. The pipes rust, the pools grow moss. Civilization folds inward and decides that filth is safer than flirtation. Back in the village, the water barrels sit by every doorway. The liquid inside is grey, sometimes green, sometimes moving. It's used for washing clothes, scoring pots, watering herbs. When it gets too foul, you dump it into the gutter and start again. Life goes on in loops. You realize that filth isn't failure, it's rhythm. Each household beats to the same slow, earthy drum. A travelling peddler passes through. His cart rattles with soap from Italy, rare stuff made of olive oil and ash. He demonstrates by washing his hands, and the crowd stares as if witnessing alchemy. The bubbles shimmer rainbow thin, then vanish. He smells like rosemary and citrus, like another world. People sniff the air suspiciously. Too clean, someone mutters. Unnatural. The peddler sells 3 bars to the curious, not the convinced, and moves on. When rain finally comes, it's an event. Children dance in it until mothers call them inside. Adults watch from thresholds, faces unreadable. Rain cleans roofs, gutters, animals, everything but people. They stay dry, superstitious, certain that what falls from the sky carries more than blessing. Later, when the sun returns, the puddles shine like mirrors no one dares touch. Even those who live by water distrust it. Fishermen tell of spirits that drag swimmers down. Millers claim the river grows hungry every spring and must be fed a goat or worse to calm its appetite. Superstition fills the space that science hasn't yet reached, and in that vacuum, fear feels like wisdom. Better to stink than to drown. At night, the hearth is the true purifier. Fire dries sweat, burns lice, and smokes out bad air. The villagers sit close, letting the heat bake their clothes and skin until the damp smell fades into something woody and tolerable. The flames lick the walls, and for a moment everyone looks healthy. Warmth masquerades as cleanliness. You feel it yourself, this illusion of purification by smoke. The church bell tolls Compline. The final prayer hour. Across the village, shutters close. The stream glimmers silver in moonlight, indifferent. It has taken lives and given crops, and it will keep doing both. You think of the world centuries from now, when people will drink crystal water from glass and laugh at ancestors who feared baths. But right now, here, the fear makes sense. Every superstition in this place is a footnote to survival. As you lie down again on your straw bed, the smell of damp earth lingers in your hair. The goats sigh softly in their corner. Your hands are rough, your feet stained, but you are safe from the water. You understand now why no one bathes. They don't choose filth, they choose life. Dirt may dull the skin, but water can steal the soul. And when tomorrow comes, you'll wake up and avoid the stream again, exactly as everyone else does, perfectly certain you've done the sensible thing. The bell tolls before dawn again, slow and deliberate, as if the air itself is praying. You stir on your straw mattress, already knowing what day it is by the rhythm of the sound. The long pause between each chime means Sunday. The day of washing, not your body but your soul. Outside, the street is hushed. Smoke from last night's hearth fires rises into the pale sky like threads of incense. Every door opens at nearly the same moment, the village breathing in unison. No one carries buckets today. No soap, no cloth, no talk of cleanliness. Instead, everyone walks toward the church, drawn by duty and habit. In a world where dirt clings to skin like a second name, holiness is measured not by smell but by obedience. You fall in step behind your neighbors, hearing the shuffle of wooden shoes on frost-crusted mud. The church looks impossibly tall compared with the huts around it. Its stone walls are streaked dark with soot and lichen. Its doorway carved with saints whose faces have melted under a century of rain. Inside, it smells of beeswax, damp wool, and human closeness. You find comfort in that mixture. Everyone does. It is the smell of forgiveness. The priest speaks about purity, but not the kind that comes from water. He says the body is temporary, a vessel, a clay jar holding the soul. Too much care for the jar invites vanity. Too much washing insults the Creator's design. Only sin must be scrubbed, and that happens with confession, not soap. The villagers nod. You nod. It makes sense in a way the cold stream never did. After the sermon, people line up at the font near the entrance. The holy water there isn't for bathing, just a touch on the fingertips, a cross drawn on the brow. The rest of your body remains untouched, safely unwashed. The droplets smell faintly of copper and candle smoke. You can almost believe they protect you from the unseen sickness outside. The church is more than sanctuary, it's a climate. Within its cool shadows, dirt loses its meaning. Everyone kneels side by side, rich beside poor, all equally unkempt and equally devout. The scent of sweat and hay mixes with incense until you can't tell which belongs to heaven and which to earth. This blending becomes a comfort. If the holy smells like the human, perhaps the human is holy after all. When Mass ends, no one rushes home. They linger in the yard, gossiping beneath the bare branches, faces warmed by the weak sun. Washing would undo the effort of prayer. Instead, they cleanse each other with talk. News of crops, births, misfortunes. Words do the rinsing. You realize conversation is the village's version of fresh air. Later, the priest visits cottages to bless thresholds with smoke. He swings the censer gently, the metal clinking like a heartbeat. The rising clouds of incense crawl across rafters, chasing away bad air, or so people believe. When he leaves, the lingering perfume feels sacred enough to replace soap. The family breathes deeply, letting holiness settle into their clothes. You think back to Rome, a name whispered like a rumor. There, ancient emperors bathed daily in marble halls, perfumed and polished, and they still fell to ruin. Cleanliness did not save them. The Middle Ages learnt that lesson well. Dirt endures, kingdoms don't. So every stain on your sleeve becomes a badge of humility, every smudge a small act of faith. Even the monasteries, the supposed centers of order, smell of labor, ink, and wool. Monks wash their hands before meals, not out of hygiene but ritual. They scrape wax from candle holders and scrub tables with sand, yet avoid washing themselves too often. Purity comes from repetition, not rinsing. Chant replaces water, rhythm replaces soap. When they sing, the sound vibrates through stone like a cleansing tide that leaves everyone dry but forgiven. For peasants, the church calendar becomes a second kind of weather. Lent, Advent, feast days, each with its own restrictions and small permissions. Some days forbid bathing altogether, others discourage it during fasting hours. You might sprinkle yourself lightly before Easter, symbolic cleansing for the soul's rebirth, but never enough to glisten. The ritual is a whisper, not a soak. There's another layer, quieter but stronger, shame. Nakedness equals vulnerability, and the devil loves vulnerability. The act of undressing to bathe feels perilous, even in solitude. Walls have eyes, God always watches. Better to keep skin hidden, body sealed, heart guarded. Dirt becomes a kind of cloak, an unspoken prayer, that temptation will slide off with the next layer of dust. Children grow into this logic without question. When a toddler reaches for puddle water, the mother smacks the hand gently, murmuring that spirits live there. When a teenage boy wonders aloud about swimming in summer, the father warns of cramps, sickness, and sin. By adulthood, the fear is instinct. You can't even imagine wanting to bathe anymore. The thought feels almost rebellious. Some try to compromise. A cloth dipped in wine to wipe the face, a handful of ashes rubbed on the scalp, then brushed away. Dry washing, they call it, a method approved by both priest and common sense. The scent of smoke lingers pleasantly, and the ritual satisfies the craving to do something without doing too much. You feel cleaner, though nothing has changed. When plague strikes again, and it always returns like unpaid debt, people pray harder, not cleaner. Priests organize processions through town, candles raised, hymns echoing against closed shutters. No one dares to wash the sick. Touching them is already risk enough. Instead, they burn the straw of infected houses and start over. Fire purifies what water cannot. It's strange standing amid all this belief, knowing that centuries later someone will invent words like bacteria and hygiene. But here those words don't exist. The logic of faith is its own science. If the pure of heart survive, then purity is proven. If they die, then heaven simply wanted them early. Either way, there's no argument that water can win. The seasons turn again. Spring mud replaces winter frost. The villagers scrub tools, barns, floors, but not bodies. Every Easter, the priest sprinkles holy water on the congregation, droplets flashing in sunlight like tiny stars. People close their eyes, whispering Amen. This, they think, is enough. The soul shines clean beneath the grime. That evening you walk home, candle in hand, the road glowing softly under your feet. The stream glimmers nearby, whispering its invitation, ancient and familiar. You hesitate for a moment, imagining what it might feel like to step in, to let the current slide over your skin, to feel light instead of dust. Then you remember Agnes, and the priest's warning, and the comfort of dry wool. You turn away. Back inside, the hearth's warmth folds around you like a blanket. The smoke from the blessed incense still hangs in the rafters, and for the first time you understand why the villagers never long for rivers. They already have their purification, just not the kind you'd expect. It hums in prayers, it curls in smoke, it clings to unwashed hands folded over bread. Filth here isn't failure, it's faith made visible. You lie down, the smell of soot and sweat oddly comforting, the rhythmic drip of rain outside marking the hours. In the hush between drops you realize something the centuries won't forget. Cleanliness may soothe the skin, but belief cleanses the mind, and for the medieval soul, that was the only purity that mattered. You hear the rumor first at the bread oven. Someone's cousin in the next town has built a house for washing, a real one, with tubs, benches, and warm water that flows through pipes. They call it a bathhouse. The word itself feels exotic on your tongue like a foreign spice. The older villagers frown, the younger ones pretend not to listen, but their eyes flicker. Bathing, after all, is supposed to be sinful, but also irresistible. By evening the gossip has grown legs. They say you can soak in fragrant herbs there, feel the dirt slide off like regret. They say knights go, and merchants' wives, and even priests after sunset. No one quite knows what happens behind those steam-fogged doors, which only makes the story stronger. The thought of clean skin pulls at you the way thirst pulls at dry lips, but desire in this century is dangerous business. Days later, curiosity wins. You follow a merchant's cart toward the neighboring market town, the road lined with poplars shaking dust into the air. The town smells different, not of manure and straw, but of metal, yeast and river mud. Somewhere among the winding lanes a new sign hangs, a wooden board painted with a bathing tub and sprigs of mint. Steam curls from the shutters. Your stomach knots. Inside, the air is thick as bread dough. Candle smoke clings to wet timber beams. Women in linen shifts carry buckets from a hearth to half-filled tubs. A man in a wool cap collects coins in a wooden bowl. He tells you to leave your boots and shame by the door. You laugh nervously, as if it's a joke. He doesn't laugh back. The water scalds at first, then softens. It smells faintly of rosemary and smoke. Your skin prickles as the heat works through grime hardened by months of cold wind. Around you, others sink quietly into their tubs. A monk hums, a woman sighs. For a moment it feels like resurrection, until you notice how close everyone sits. The water that cleans also mingles. The keeper ladles more hot water from a cauldron blackened by years of soot. He tells you the bathhouse follows the old Roman ways. Steam, sweat, soak, scrape. He says the Romans lived to 90. You nod. Though you remember stories of plagues born in steam, someone whispers that too much bathing weakens the body, lets sickness in through open pores. The warmth suddenly feels treacherous. Outside, rain begins to drum on the shingles. Drops leak through cracks in the roof, hissing as they strike the hot water. A woman laughs, a sound half pleasure, half defiance. Her laughter draws glances, some jealous, some fearful. In a place where cleanliness borders on sin, joy is suspicious. By late evening, candles burn low and talk grows louder. The bathhouse has changed mood. Steam makes people forget themselves. You catch snatches of songs, the splash of cups raised, a story about a bishop who banned bathing after midnight because temptation rises with the heat. You sink lower, water lapping at your chin, and wonder whether the sin lies in the act or the comfort it brings. When you finally step outside, the cold air hits like a punishment. Your skin, suddenly bare and bright, feels foreign. You pull your cloak tight, trying to trap the warmth before it escapes. Behind you, laughter echoes from the doorway, chased by the scent of wet wood and herbs. It smells like both purity and peril. Back in your own village, the priest already knows. News travels faster than carts. He warns from the pulpit that bathhouses breed disease and scandal, that sinners shed not only dirt but modesty. He says the devil prefers steam because it hides the shape of things. People murmur approval, eyes darting toward you and others who might have gone. The heat on your skin turns to shame. Still, the habit spreads. Merchants build small baths near taverns. Travelers stop to soak before long journeys. Water becomes business again. But with trade comes risk, strangers, illness, new ideas. Soon the baths are blamed for fevers that sweep through towns. Doctors write that heat thins the blood. Moralists claim lust grows where pores open. The two theories agree on only one thing: the bath is dangerous. By the next century the church shuts many bathhouses down. Doors are sealed with wax and prayers. The pipes rust, the tubs dry. The buildings stand empty, echoing faintly with laughter turned to dust. The people who once dared to wash return to ash and linen, convinced once more that dirt is divine protection. Yet the memory lingers. Old women recall the heat that eased their bones, the brief perfume of mint and wood smoke. They whisper it like a lost spell. Sometimes, when the stream glints in the afternoon sun, you catch yourself imagining the warmth again, the feeling of weight lifted from skin. You almost miss it. Winter arrives, and with it coughs and fevers. The physician who passes through blames cold air, not cleanliness. He prescribes bed rest and ale. No one thinks to wash the blankets. You sit by the hearth, steam ghosting from your breath, remembering the forbidden heat. For the first time you realize that survival here isn't about comfort. It's about endurance. Weeks later, the bathhouse collapses under snow. Children play among the beams, unaware of what the place once promised. They find a broken bucket, a piece of green soap hardened to stone. You watch them from the road, torn between nostalgia and relief. The age of dangerous baths has ended, for now, but time is circular. Someday people will rediscover the pleasure of water, the miracle of heat, the cleanliness that heals instead of condemns. They'll build pipes and pumps, invent words like sanitation and hygiene. They'll forget how long it took to reach that point, how many centuries of fear stood between dirt and redemption. Tonight, though, you lie by the fire, skin still remembering the warmth it isn't allowed to have. Outside, rain turns to sleet, striking the roof like tiny confessions. You pull the blanket closer and whisper the thought you'd never say aloud. Maybe the danger wasn't the bath. Maybe it was the feeling of being clean in a world built on grime. The cock crows before the light changes. You're already awake, half tangled in the blanket, aware of your own smell before you're aware of the morning. The air in the hut is heavy, a mixture of smoke, wool, and bodies. Somewhere under all that is the sour trace of yesterday's sweat. It isn't offensive, it's just there like gravity. You stretch, feeling the crunch of straw under your shoulders, and listen to the faint breathing of everyone else still sleeping. The door opens with a wooden sigh. Cool dawn air spills inside, tasting of dew and manure. You step out barefoot. The mud yields like old bread dough. Every path in the village is the same, a tangle of footprints, chicken tracks and cart ruts. The first task is always fire. You crouch, blowing life into the embers left from last night. Sparks leap, smoke curls, eyes sting. Within minutes, you smell of smoke again, the day's first layer. Breakfast is a wedge of bread and a sip of small beer. The cup leaves a yeasty tang on your tongue. The child spills some on the floor and the dog licks it before anyone can scold him. Everything here is reused, nothing truly wasted. Even crumbs belong to someone smaller. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, linen that hasn't seen washing in weeks, and head outside, ready to feed the real masters of the household, the animals. The pen is slick with mud, and something less innocent. Pigs grunt, chickens complain. You scoop feed, scatter grain, push against stubborn hides. The smell thickens until it becomes weather. When one of the goats nuzzles your hand, its fur leaves an oil that lingers long after you've moved on. Dirt isn't just under your nails now, it's part of your skin's language. Out in the fields, the ground glistens with early frost. Your boots, if you can call them that, soak through instantly. The plough cuts through soil rich with decay. Each turn of the blade releases the scent of rot and root, sweet and foul together. Sweat starts its slow march down your back despite the chill. The mix of cold air and heat from labour paints the body in its own varnish, the smell of being alive. By mid-morning the sun climbs and so do the flies. They swarm in tiny halos around every ear, every tail, every exposed bit of skin. You learn not to swat too hard. The motion wastes energy. The body finds a rhythm between itch and tolerance. Work smooths rough thoughts the way stones smooth in a river. Soon all that matters is the next furrow. At noon, you rest under the hedgerow. Lunch is bread again. Maybe a slice of onion, maybe not. You drink from a clay jug and taste yesterday's dust. The water's cool but faintly metallic, the flavour of iron nails and time. Around you, others eat in silence. Conversation feels like a luxury reserved for feast days. The only sound is chewing, birds, and the creak of wooden wheels somewhere on the road. When you stand again, your hands leave dark prints on your tunic. The cloth is so impregnated with soil and sweat that it could probably stand on its own. But that same stiffness is armour. Fabric that once scratched now shields. You've learned that comfort is suspiciously close to weakness. Only friction feels trustworthy. Afternoon work moves to the riverbank where flax soaks in pits of water. The smell is fierce, wet plant fibre and slow rot. You stir the stalks with a stick while trying not to breathe too deeply. A few villagers joke that angels can't stand this stench and stay well clear. That makes everyone laugh, but nobody corrects them. A smell this strong might actually keep evil away. Children run by chasing a goose. Their legs are streaked with mud, knees shining where the dirt has rubbed smooth. They're laughing, happy. Cleanliness never occurs to them. Play itself is their version of washing, movement that scrubs the day through muscle and air. The mothers barely glance up from their work. Dirt on children is proof of health. By late afternoon, clouds drift in, and the light turns copper. You haul the last bundles home, each step leaving another print in the road's soft belly. The village smells of cooking, onion, smoke, something frying in lard. Those scents mix with the constant undertone of animals and refuse until everything feels edible and inevitable. At the stream's edge, you pause to rinse tools. The water reflects the sky like dull metal. You dunk the wooden handles, wipe them on your tunic, and the line between clean and dirty dissolves again. The hands that hold the plough also feed the fire, cradle the child, cross themselves in church. The same grime ties all those acts together. Back in the hut, evening crowds the room quickly. The hearth flares to life. Smoke braids through the rafters, coating them a little thicker. You hang wet clothes near the flame. The smell of damp wool fills the air. The smallest child sneezes, wipes his nose with the back of his hand, then curls up to sleep. Every surface is alive with touch. Supper is stew. You ladle it from the same pot that once boiled dye, and before that, broth, and before that, laundry water. The flavour is deeper for its history. You eat slowly, each spoonful carrying wood, smoke and salt. Conversation drifts to weather, taxes, saints, births, life's permanent dirt that no washing ever removes. Outside, rain starts again. You listen to it strike the roof, thankful it stays there. A drop seeps through and lands on your hand, cold, innocent, foreign. You wipe it away quickly without thinking. Habit stronger than reason. The body remembers the warnings of centuries. After the meal, you tend the animals one last time. The pen is warm with their breath. You shovel straw, toss feed, murmur words they understand better than prayers. When you scratch the cow's flank, your fingers come away dark. You don't bother to wipe them. The smell is heavy but comforting, the perfume of survival. Night closes like a door. You strip off your outer tunic, hang it near the fire to dry. Beneath it, your skin gleams faintly with sweat and soot. If you could see yourself from centuries ahead, you'd look ancient already, a creature sculpted from soil and smoke. But here, now, you look perfectly normal. You lie down beside the hearth. The straw crackles faintly under your weight. The dog curls at your feet. The goat shifts in her sleep. The air hums with small breaths. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, lonely and exact. You breathe in the smell of the day, ash, sweat, damp wool, earth, and realize it's not unpleasant anymore. It's the smell of work finished. Tomorrow will smell the same, and the day after that, until seasons turn and fields change color. Clean and dirty will trade meanings again and again. You close your eyes, grateful for warmth, for bread, for dirt that forgives so easily. The fire sighs low, the smoke curls upward, and the darkness folds around you like a second skin. You wake not in a hut this time, but in a chamber lined with tapestries. The straw has been traded for linen, the goat for a greyhound. Yet the air is still thick, musk, tallow smoke, and something faintly floral that tries and mostly fails to hide the scent of people. You are a noble now, or close enough, living in a castle that promises comfort, but delivers it in medieval units. Your servant enters with a bronze basin of water no larger than a helmet. Steam curls upward, perfumed with rosemary and crushed lavender. It isn't meant for bathing, it's for displaying cleanliness. You dip the corner of a cloth, wipe your face and feel both refreshed and sticky. In this world, perfume is the new purity. The richer the scent, the cleaner you appear. Soap exists but rarely meets skin. Most nobles prefer a mixture called toilet water, an infusion of herbs steeped in wine or vinegar. You rub it on your wrists and neck, grimacing at the sting. Hygiene, at your level, is a performance. The servants empty chamber pots behind tapestries. Rushes on the floor absorb spills until they become part of the decor. The stench of old dinners mingles with incense, and the result is civilization. You dress layer by layer, linen chemise, velvet gown, brocade surcoat, all scented with the same mixture of rose oil and clove. The weight of fabric alone could break a weaker spine, but each layer also keeps the skin from sight, and therefore from judgment. Cleanliness here isn't about health, it's about reputation. Servants approach with silver combs and aromatic powders. One sprinkles crushed orris root through your hair, a sweet earthy smell meant to smother the oils beneath. You remember hearing that washing hair with water could cause madness, or worse, invite spirits through the pores. So you endure the powder instead, turning your head just enough to keep from sneezing. Breakfast smells of spice and smoke. Cinnamon, pepper, nutmeg, luxuries hoarded like treasure. These scents too become part of the daily disguise. The castle halls reek of feasts past. so heavy with grease that torches hiss when lit. To survive the smell, nobles burn sweetwood or carry pomanders, little metal balls filled with musk, ambergris or civet. They swing from belts like ornaments but are really personal air filters. Step into the courtyard. Beneath the grandeur, it smells of horses, leather and wet stone. The stables are only one wall away from the kitchen. Even the Queen's garden cannot escape manure. It grows in it. You breathe through the pomander and imagine the sea, though the nearest one is weeks away. Occasionally a daring soul suggests an actual bath. The idea sends murmurs down the hall. Bathhouses once thrived before the plagues and the sermons. Now they survive in secrecy, hidden in the alleys of cities, places where steam and scandal mix in equal measure. A noble might visit under disguise, for health, for relaxation, or for reasons everyone pretends not to know. You decide curiosity is worth the risk. Night falls, and you slip through back streets toward the faint orange glow of a forbidden door. Inside, warmth, laughter, the hiss of water against heated stone. Steam curls like ghosts around painted walls. Men and women alike lounge in wooden tubs, scented with juniper or thyme. They call it cleansing, but it feels more like confession. The water is barely tepid and tinged with oil. You lower yourself in, heart pounding, expecting revelation. What you find instead is the simple shock of contact, the body remembering what skin feels like when it's not hidden. For a moment you think maybe the physicians are wrong, that no demons lurk in the pores, but the thought is dangerous. Even here you whisper it only to yourself. Later, back at the castle, you dry yourself with linen that smells faintly of smoke. Your servant eyes you nervously, muttering a prayer under her breath. Everyone knows people who bathe too often catch chills, and chills invite fevers, and fevers invite the grave. The body may feel lighter, but suspicion clings heavier than dirt. You mask the scent of water with fresh perfume, rose, civet, and a dash of vinegar. The mixture stings your throat. In the mirror's warped glass your reflection gleams faintly, skin pink from scrubbing. It looks almost alive. You wonder how many years it will take before anyone calls that look beautiful instead of risky. Outside the chamber, the castle still hums with odors, fires, fabrics, food. Perfume fights are losing war against reality, but nobility keeps fighting anyway. Each new fragrance is another fortress wall between themselves and the world's decay. In a way, scent is their armor. You pass a tapestry showing angels pouring water over saints. It looks serene, impossible. The irony isn't lost on you. Holiness here is always depicted clean. Holiness in life smells like sweat under silk. As night deepens, servants sprinkle crushed herbs across the floor rushes, mint, thyme, lavender. Their scent briefly sweetens the air before fading under the heavier smells of people, dogs, and smoke. Cleanliness lasts minutes. Presence lasts all night. You lie in bed, hair powdered, skin slick with oil and rose water. The candlelight trembles on gilded mirrors. Somewhere below, the moat stinks faintly of algae and waste. Yet this is refinement, the pinnacle of the age. You close your eyes and breathe through the perfume, imagining freshness that doesn't exist. Tomorrow priests will preach about purity of soul, while nobles disguise impurity of body with incense. The poorer folk will smell of soil and labor, the rich of amber and fear. Everyone will think the other unclean, and the air between them will carry it all, the invisible common truth of a world without soap. For now you sleep in a haze of roses and smoke. Beneath the perfume, sweat still lingers. The castle exhales. Outside, rain falls softly on the courtyard stones, washing nothing away. You've survived another cold dawn. The hearth still smoulders, but your neighbour's cough has been echoing for days, wet and low. In this century, illness isn't a stranger, it's a roommate. The smell of sickness mingles with the rest, smoke, wool, sweat, and nobody tries to separate them. Because in your world, filth isn't the enemy, it's medicine. You shuffle to the cottage door and watch the local healer pass by, a wicker basket on his arm. He's wrapped in layers that have seen more winters than patience. From the folds dangle bunches of rosemary, sage, and something darker, leeches squirming in a clay pot. The sight doesn't frighten anyone. It comforts them. It means the body's balance can still be coaxed, not cleansed. Medicine begins with a chart of 4 invisible rivers: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Health is the harmony between them. Dirt, sweat, even the smell of labor are seen as proof that your fluids are circulating properly. To wash too often is to tamper with the orchestra. Better to let the body play its own grimy symphony. The healer examines your neighbor by candlelight. He peers at the tongue, sniffs the breath, and listens to the rumble of the stomach like a fortune teller reading the wind. Then he nods sagely and announces that the patient's humors are too moist. The cure: less sleep, more sweating, and a poultice made of onion and pig fat pressed to the chest. No one asks about cleanliness. That's a question for fools and foreigners. In the town, physicians wear long robes and gloves to show rank, not hygiene. Their offices reek of vinegar and ink. Shelves overflow with jars labelled in Latin: crushed emerald, ground coral, powdered bone. Every cure involves contradiction: hot balanced by cold, wet by dry, clean by filthy. To purge evil from the body, they sometimes add more of it. Bloodletting is the favourite ritual. The barber surgeon ties a strip of cloth around the arm, nicks a vein, and fills a bowl as calmly as if drawing wine. The bowl is rarely washed. A thin crust of yesterday's crimson clings to its rim. The smell is iron and vinegar. Patients believe the weakness that follows is proof of success, evil spirits fleeing through the wound. If fever persists, there's always the sweating cure. The patient is wrapped in blankets beside the fire until the body steams. Sweat drips, eyes glaze, and the floor turns slick. Everyone applauds when the smell becomes unbearable. The sickness leaves with the odour, the healer says, and nobody doubts him. In the medieval mind, purity has no scent. When the great plagues come, whole towns burn herbs in the streets. Rosemary, juniper, wormwood, smoke thick enough to hide the sun. People walk through it believing they're armoured against death. Masks stuffed with spices appear, shaped like birds' beaks. They look absurd to you, but to them, this is science. They're fighting invisible miasmas, not germs, bad air that seeps into clean pores. So the trick is to stay coated, sealed, protected by grime. Bathhouses close. Physicians warn that hot water loosens the body's defences. Skin, they say, should remain tight, pores shut. The poor obey because they have no choice. The rich obey because fear is persuasive. A few still sneak into tubs under moonlight, but they pour in vinegar first, hoping to neutralise sin. Cleanliness has become a gamble between vanity and death. The apothecary down the road smells of honey and rot. Shelves gleam with glass jars filled with dried insects, lard, petals, and dust. He crushes everything in a mortar blackened by age. For stomach pain, he prescribes ground snail shells mixed with wine. For plague, a paste of arsenic and rose petals. You wonder how many patients survive long enough to complain. And yet some of his remedies work by accident or by instinct. Willow bark eases pain, garlic fights infection, though nobody calls it that. The line between medicine and superstition blurs like ink in water. Even miracles have dirt under their nails. Priests visit the sick with relics and prayers. They sprinkle holy water carefully, making sure it doesn't actually soak the skin. Water is holy only when it stays symbolic. Real water belongs to wells, and wells belong to worms. So the faithful pray for spiritual cleansing, while keeping their bodies safely encased in dust. You fall ill yourself one winter. A fever that burns through bone, then chills that bite like knives. The healer recommends bleeding first, then a diet of boiled leeks and faith. You comply, because what else is there? He presses a leech to your arm. It latches on, slick and cold. He smiles, saying, "It draws the bad humours." You watch your blood darken the creature's belly and wonder if it's also drawing your luck. Afterward you feel lighter, emptier, the world smells sharper, the fire, the straw, the faint sweetness of decay in the corner. Someone burns sage to cleanse the air. Smoke curls against the beams like a prayer in visible form. You breathe it in and tell yourself you're healing. Everyone does. Weeks later you recover. The healer takes credit. He wipes his hands on a rag already black with years of medicine and tucks it back into his belt. He smells of sweat and triumph. The filth has done its work, he says. You nod, uncertain whether to thank him or your own stubborn heart. Beyond your village, scholars begin whispering about tiny creatures that live unseen. Some claim they swim in water, others that they drift in air. Most physicians laugh. Invisible worms causing fever. Absurd. Everyone knows disease comes from imbalance, not invisible vermin. Their certainty is as thick as their sleeves. Still, a few experiment in secret, boiling instruments, washing hands before surgery. The old guard calls it dangerous. Too much water weakens the spirit, they say. The new thinkers persist quietly, drying their hands in shame. Revolution hidden in plain sight. For now, You live in the age when filth heals, when bloodletting purifies, when the smell of sweat is proof of life. And even centuries later, when the world learns better, some part of you will remember this logic. The strange comfort of believing that dirt in its own way keeps you safe. The summer begins warm and bright. Wheat heads swell, bees drone, and for a few weeks you believe the air itself has forgiven the world. Then the rumours arrive, slow at first, carried by merchants who whisper about a sickness that follows the trade roads like a shadow. By the time the last cart of saltfish reaches your town, the shadow has a name: pestis. No one understands what it is, only what it does. A cough, a swelling, a darkness beneath the skin. The baker's wife falls first, then the cooper's apprentice, then the priest who buried them. People say the air feels thicker, that the wind smells like iron. Every bell that tolls spreads the story further. You remember the old lessons about miasma, bad air rising from filth, creeping through pores. The healers tell you to close your shutters and burn herbs. The priests say to open the windows and let the prayers escape. Both claim to know the truth. You try both. The smell of rosemary mixes with the smell of fear until they are the same. The marketplace empties. Bread grows stale in stalls. Cats multiply because no one dares kill them. They say cats chase the demons that bring plague. Dogs disappear, blamed for spreading it. Silence seeps into the lanes like water. Only the coughing breaks it. Families nail herbs above their doors. Vinegar jars line windowsills. A few smear their faces with pitch to trap the bad air. Others carry bouquets of mint and juniper to mask the smell of the dying. Perfume becomes protection again, but the stench wins every time. It comes from everywhere and nowhere. Earth, sky, breath. The physicians arrive wearing beaked masks filled with crushed herbs. Their black robes rustle like crow wings. Children think they are death itself made human. They walk door to door, prodding the sick with sticks, muttering the same phrases: purge the air, close the wounds, pray. Then they leave before the next cough. The monasteries ring their bells and open their gates. The monks wash nothing but the altar cloths. Convinced cleanliness invites the disease. They light candles by the hundreds. Smoke fills the chapel until it's hard to breathe. Still, the chanting never stops. Each voice trembles between faith and fever. In the fields, weeds overtake the grain. No one tends them. The plough rusts. The ox grows wild. Trade halts. Roads empty. The only travellers now are the desperate and the doomed. A woman passes through the village carrying a sack of garlic and bones. She claims she can charm the pest away. People pay her in bread, just in case. When the sickness reaches your own street, the rules collapse. Neighbours avoid eye contact. The well rope is handled with rags. You see a man burning his clothes in the square, convinced the smoke will cleanse him. The air smells like wool and terror. The priest walks ahead of funerals, his voice hoarse from blessing more graves than names he remembers. The grave diggers no longer bother with coffins. The earth itself becomes the only medicine left. You help once because guilt weighs heavier than fear. The ground feels soft, as though it's been fed too well. Night brings bonfires. Some burn straw to chase the air. Others burn their sins written on scraps of parchment. The flames crackle, sparks lifting toward the indifferent stars. People sing until their voices give out. Firelight makes everyone look healthy, briefly. Weeks blur together. You forget how many bells you've heard. The healer who once bled you vanishes. The apothecary's door stays barred. Rumour says he boiled himself in his own vinegar vat, chasing purity too far. It might be true. It might be mercy. Then, as quietly as it arrived, the sickness fades. The air clears. The bells fall silent. Survivors step outside like ghosts learning sunlight again. Every face looks older. You touch your own cheek and find new lines carved there by fear. Clean air feels unnatural. People call it divine punishment, then divine forgiveness. The theologians argue, was it sin, stars, or smell? The truth lies somewhere smaller in fleas and rats, but that knowledge still sleeps centuries away. For now you burn what remains of your herbs and thank heaven for sparing you. The village returns to its rhythms but slower. Fields are lighter of hands, churches heavier with prayers. Children play in the dust again, laughing in the very air their parents once feared to breathe. Dirt becomes ordinary once more, a sign that life insists on continuing. At night you sit by the hearth, the fire painting the walls amber. The smell of smoke feels comforting now. It hides the phantom scent of death that never quite leaves. You remember how people once said water spreads sickness, and realize the plague proved them right for the wrong reasons. It wasn't the baths, it was the wells. Clean or dirty, the world was always the same river. You close your eyes. Outside, rain begins to fall, gentle as forgiveness. Somewhere a new bell rings, not for morning this time, but for vespers. Life, scrubbed raw, starts again, and though you still won't dare to bathe, you feel something inside you rinse free, a quiet, invisible cleansing the plague left behind. Morning again, though the word fresh hasn't meant anything for generations. You step into a narrow lane in any European town, London, Paris, Florence, doesn't matter, and the air greets you first. It's not simply odour, it's geography, a living map of smoke, sweat, horses, and waste. You taste it before you breathe it, metallic and warm, as though the city itself were exhaling through rotten teeth. After the Great Plagues, people never truly returned to washing. Clean water meant risk, and risk clung harder than dirt. The pipes that once carried runoff from monasteries now carry everything else: chamber pots, butcher scraps, birth fluids, and beer waste. Each morning, servants fling buckets into the street with a warning shout, "Gardy Lou." The sound becomes Europe's second heartbeat. You pick your steps carefully between trickles of grey slime. Shoes, if you have them, are wooden pattens, little stilts meant to keep feet above the muck. They clatter like hooves. Beneath, the street glistens with centuries of resignation. Even the rain smells old. When it falls, it doesn't clean, it simply rearranges the filth into fresh patterns. Inside houses, things aren't better, only more perfumed. Rushes cover the floors, sprinkled with dried herbs to disguise whatever lives beneath. After a week, the herbs crush into dust. After a month, the rushes host entire civilizations of fleas. Changing them twice a year counts as ambition. You learn to lift your skirts or breeches slowly, never suddenly. Surprises startle the insects. Yet somehow life thrives in the stench. Markets bustle, bakers shout, bells ring. People joke that God gave noses only so mouths could find ale. The taverns overflow each evening. Beer again is safer than water. Cups rarely see soap. Only a quick rinse if you're lucky. And still humanity endures, laughing, coughing, fermenting its own immunity. The upper classes, armed with money and paranoia, declare war on smell. Perfume becomes armor. Lavender, musk, civet, ambergris, bottled oceans and beasts, liquefied into status. Women soak gloves in scent. Men powder wigs until they shed pale clouds like moths. The air inside a noble salon is so heavy with fragrance you can taste flowers that never grew in Europe. Bathing, though, remains suspect. Physicians warn that water loosens the flesh and invites disease through the skin. Instead, nobles wipe themselves with linen cloths dipped in spirits or vinegar. They call it dry bathing. You, if you serve them, empty the used cloths into the gutter, completing the circle of cleanliness. Wigs hide lice, rouge hides pallor, powder hides sweat, everything hides something. The line between hygiene and theatre blurs completely. A noble might spend 3 hours dressing but never wash an inch of skin. The poor, meanwhile, smell honestly. Dirt becomes democracy. Everyone owns some. Paris grows to 500,000 souls by the 1600s, and the River Seine bears witness to them all. It carries excrement, offal, corpses, and laundry in the same current. Fish vanish, superstition fills the gap. People believe the river itself is alive and hungry. They throw offerings of bread to appease it. The smell is its reply. In London, the problem is vertical. Houses lean over narrow alleys until sunlight barely touches the ground. Drains clog, rats inherit. When it rains hard, the alleys flood ankle-deep in grey soup. Children splash anyway. Childhood is stubborn that way. Mothers shout, fathers laugh, and somewhere a philosopher writes about human progress. City authorities try occasional reform. New laws demand night soil collectors, gutters, sewers. But the carts can't keep up. By dawn, the waste piles again. The collectors themselves become legends. Men who disappear into alleys and emerge ghosts of ammonia and sweat. You tip them in coin or ale, whichever offends the nose less. Even palaces rot behind marble. Versailles glitters from a distance, but walk its corridors and the illusion cracks. Courtiers relieve themselves behind curtains or staircases rather than risk the long walk to the communal privy. Servants carry scented fans to wave away the truth. Roses bloom outside the windows. Inside, another kind of garden flourishes unseen. Perfume merchants become kings of the invisible world. A drop of ambergris costs more than a farmer earns in a month. Bottles travel from Grasse to London to Vienna, traded like relics. In a way, they are relics, the last defense against humanity's own atmosphere. You begin to associate cleanliness not with purity but with luxury. Doctors still cling to the four humours. They prescribe sweating, bleeding or purging for nearly everything. A patient who smells foul is considered healthy, his body venting its corruptions. Those who smell pleasant are suspected of internal decay. You realize the human nose has become both judge and prisoner. Then comes the century of curiosity. In coffee houses and lecture halls, thinkers begin to ask dangerous questions. What if air itself carries invisible life? What if water can cleanse instead of curse? You hear the names Boyle, Hooke, Leeuwenhoek, men peering through glass lenses at worlds too small to smell. The old certainties tremble, but change crawls. The poor still sleep beside open drains, the rich still hide behind perfume. Fires sweep through cities and are seen as blessings. They cleanse where people cannot. London's Great Fire of 1666 leaves ashes and, for a brief moment, fresh air. Survivors call it divine fumigation. God as the only reliable street cleaner. By the 18th century, the Enlightenment glimmers even in wash basins. Public baths reopen timidly. Physicians debate whether warm water can strengthen the nerves. Fashion shifts toward lighter fabrics and paler colors. Dangerous choices if you live dirty. Soap, once medicine, becomes commerce. You see the first advertisements promising purity by the bar, yet most people still fear the plunge. In 1750, a Parisian pamphlet warns that excessive bathing weakens moral fibre. In London, a doctor insists on washing only once a month lest the skin lose its natural defences. Old habits cling like dust. Humanity, it seems, will scrub its soul long before its body. Even so, something shifts quietly beneath the stink. Engineers design underground drains. Chemists isolate soap's ingredients. Artists paint water not as danger but delight. Rivers still reek, but children begin to dream of swimming instead of fearing. The idea of cleanliness evolves from superstition to aspiration. You can smell the future faintly, like rain on dry stone. By night, the streets glimmer with lamplight on puddles. The city still breathes its sour perfume, but now there's curiosity in the air, a sense that maybe filth isn't destiny. You walk home past tanners, bakers, philosophers and perfume sellers, all specialists in smell. Above them the stars shine sharp and clean, unbothered. In your room you light a small candle and pour a basin of water. The surface ripples with reflected flame. You hesitate, remembering every warning you've ever heard. Then slowly you dip a cloth, wring it out, and wipe your face. The sensation startles you. Cool, weightless, alive. You laugh softly. The world doesn't end. It only smells a little better. Morning breaks over a different world. The year could be 1820, maybe 1840. It doesn't matter. What matters is the smell, or rather the absence of it. For the first time in 1,000 years, a city's dawn doesn't arrive with rot. The air carries coal smoke instead of decay, metallic, sharp, almost proud. You breathe deeply and cough. Progress always begins with irritation. You walk through streets that gleam faintly wet. Not filth, not runoff, but water, pumped, piped, distributed. Beneath your boots, unseen rivers of iron and brick hum with pressure. Engineers call it sanitation, the people call it a miracle. Every turn of the tap feels like controlling a tame storm. Children chase puddles just because they can. In this century, cleanliness finally gains a gospel of its own. Doctors no longer talk about humours but about germs. Invisible life is no longer a myth, it's proof. Soap factories rise beside cotton mills, their chimneys coughing white steam scented faintly of tallow and lavender. You pass a poster promising purity in every household. No priest wrote it, an advertising man did. The holy and the hygienic have changed seats. You step into a modest brick house. A woman is heating water over a stove, filling a zinc tub. Her children giggle, waiting their turn. The bath water clouds quickly, but nobody minds. It's proof of success. A century ago, such a ritual would have seemed reckless. Now it's an evening comfort. Steam curls from the tub like the ghost of every ancestor who feared it. Cities build public bathhouses again, this time without shame. Long halls of tile and glass echo with laughter. Men soak sore hands, women scrub laundry and gossip. The air smells of soap, citrus and wet stone. Light refracts through steam, turning grime into radiance. Cleanliness becomes social instead of solitary, almost democratic. In hospitals, nurses in white cotton dresses wash their hands before touching patients. The idea seems absurdly simple, but lives depend on it. The old doctors grumble, the new ones count the saved. A Hungarian named Semmelweis insists that death itself can be rinsed away. Few believe him at first. Truth, like dirt, is stubborn. Factories begin producing soap by the ton, coarse yellow bars for the poor, scented cakes for the rich. Advertisements depict shining families, skin pale as porcelain, hair like sunlight. Cleanliness becomes beauty, beauty becomes morality. To be dirty is no longer holy or natural, it is suspicious. The pendulum swings hard. Outside, sewers stretch like arteries beneath the cobblestones. Men in lantern-lit tunnels shovel progress by hand. The stench down there is legendary, but above ground people breathe easier. When the Great Stink hits London in 1858, Parliament flees the reek of its own river and finally funds a new network of drains. The lesson is literal. Civilization survives only when it learns to bury its waste properly. Science and industry form an unlikely marriage. Chemistry refines soap, physics pumps water, civic pride builds fountains in every square. What was once superstition becomes infrastructure. The rich boast of porcelain tubs, the poor queue at public baths. Both smell faintly of carbolic acid. It's the scent of a species discovering its reflection. You visit one of the new laundries. Rows of women scrub clothes on corrugated boards, hands red but smiling. Steam fills the air like clouds trapped indoors. The rhythm of work sounds like applause. For them, cleanliness isn't luxury, it's livelihood. Water, long treated as enemy, now pays wages. In upper-class homes, bathrooms become shrines. Marble, brass, mirrors. Faucets shaped like swans pour warm water on demand. Engineers hide pipes inside walls so the miracle feels effortless. The bath is reborn as ritual, private and silent. You lower yourself into one, imagining every century of fear dissolving in the swirl. Yet progress carries its own smell, the soot of factories, the chemical bite of industry. Rivers turn white with soap foam and grey with dye. The same water that cleans also poisons. For the first time, cleanliness and pollution coexist, opposite sides of modernity's mirror. The lesson: humanity will always trade one impurity for another. Still, life expectancy rises, plagues retreat. The night air no longer hums with fear. Streets glisten after rain and people walk them without flinching. Children play in public fountains. You smile, realizing they are the first generation to think of water as play instead of peril. Science marches faster than superstition can run. Pasteur finds microbes. Engineers build pumps that stretch miles. Governments pass laws on hygiene and housing. The body becomes a national project. Cleanliness shifts from personal choice to civic duty. Posters shout, "Clean homes, healthy empire." The irony isn't lost on you. After centuries of dirt, people now fear the speck. You step out into a city lit by gas lamps. Rain glitters on polished streets, reflecting storefronts stacked with soap, toothbrushes, towels. The air smells of ozone and coal, still not pure, but civilized. Civilization, you realize, has always been defined by what it can bear to smell. At home you draw a bath without ceremony. Steam rises, catching the lamplight in halos. You sink in, eyes half closed, and think of the peasant huts, the rush floors, the bathhouse gossip, the doctors in masks. All of them led here, to this moment of easy warmth. History itself condenses into droplets on the wall. Clean water runs clear down the drain, carrying away the memory of centuries. You imagine the first peasant who dared to wash without fear, the first noble who bathed for pleasure, the first child who splashed without shame. Their courage was small, invisible, and revolutionary. Every bubble is a monument. Outside, the city hums a living organism of pipes and pumps. Every faucet is a vein, every sewer a lung. Humanity at last circulates its own cleanliness. The old diseases still wait somewhere, but their thrones are empty for now. You close your eyes and listen to the quiet hiss of the tap, the sound of civilization breathing evenly. Tomorrow, people will invent showers, toothbrushes, detergents, antiseptics, rituals the medieval mind could never imagine. They'll fear new things, germs, odors, time itself, but water will remain innocent. For the first time since stone met skin, to be clean will mean to be human. You step from the bath and look into the mirror. Steam fogs your reflection until you wipe it clear. The face that looks back is timeless, equal parts dirt and discovery. You smile. The story of filth isn't over. It's just cleaner now. Outside, dawn begins again, pale over chimneys. Somewhere a faucet drips like a clock, marking modern time. You listen, thinking of everything the world endured to hear that sound, the soft rhythm of survival rinsed at last.